All right, so this is going to be project 1. Let's get started. Project 1 is going to be where we begin marking up text from a text document and converting that into an HTML page. So let's begin by looking at the assignment. So we're going to go to our project 1. So what you're going to begin doing is creating a folder called web coding. And into that, we're going to start making, adding content, a project 1 HTML page. So let's begin with that. And all of the instructions are here, and I'm just going to give you the basic overview of what you're doing. You're going to be creating a new folder. I would recommend that you store it on your documents. In your documents, create a new folder called web coding. Into that, we're going to create what's called a new document, a new text document. So here's what we're going to do. New text document. I'm going to call it source text.txt. I'm going to open that, and I'm going to go to the link provided with the, here with the text content, and I'm going to copy that as is, copy. And I'm going to put it in my source text, and I'm going to keep it over here to the left side. I'm going to say File, Save. Okay. Now I'm going to say File, Save As. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually make a blank HTML page. So I'm going to select this file name. I'm going to put beginning quotes. I'm going to call it project1.html, and I'm going to put that all in quotes. And HTML is the file type that we're going to be using to create an HTML document. I'm going to say save, and you'll notice that in that folder now you have two items. We have our source text and we have our project HTML page. Now I'm going to just close those out for a second. So here are the two documents. Here's my source text on the left, and I'm going to open this with my text editor. I'm going to open this with my text editor so that I can modify it, but it will be an actual program that I can use. Here, let me just do it this way. If I double click on it, it'll want to open it up as a web page. But what I want to do is I'm going to go over here. I'm going to say open, and I'm going to say text all files, and I'm going to choose HTML. And now I have it open over here. I'm going to move that to the right, and then I'm going to double click that and move this over here. That's the easiest way to do it. Now, I'm actually going to just delete all this because I'm going to start from scratch. Okay? When you go to your notes and we look at project 1, it's going to begin by having you lay out the page. And when you look at the lecture content, we begin looking at the structure of an HTML5 page here at the HTML5 coding rules. What's important about this is that you begin to understand that when you lay out a page, you're marking up specific areas, specific parts of content of the page with tags, an opening tag and a closing tag. For the most part, you have an opening and a closing, and whatever's inside of it will be designated what that tag is. So if it's a paragraph, you'll have an opening paragraph, an ending paragraph. Everything within it will be considered paragraph material. Same with a header. I have an opening header, header 1, which means it's going to be the biggest, the most bold, and I have a closing header 1 tag, and whatever I put inside of it is going to be designated with the header 1 attributes, big, bold, and set apart. And as you go down through your headers, they get significantly smaller, but they're still different than, say, the paragraph content. So what we're going to do is I'm going to begin by laying out the core elements of the page so that you can begin. I want you to understand what you're doing so that you can identify issues that come along or things that you left out. So if you cut and paste everything, you don't always know what you're missing because you don't really know what you're putting in there. So let's just start with some core ideas. First things first, every page has to have a doc type. And it has to define the kind of web page that it is. What kind of language are you writing? The code is HTML5. And so I'm going to begin with designating that. So I'm going to have my doc type, control copy. I'm going to go to my web page and I'm going to put that in. It has to be the first thing on every page. I'm going to drop down. Now we have a section that's called HTML. So I'm going to designate an opening and a closing HTML part. Now I'm going to tab it in. Well, actually, I'm going to leave it here. Now to write this, I have a less than symbol, HTML, and a greater than symbol and a less than symbol to create kind of a container. It has to begin and it has to end. To designate the ending tag, I put a / here, like so. This designates the content within an HTML5 page. Here's my HTML5 doc type. This is the content that's going to be on the page. Currently, there's nothing in there. I'm going to give myself some room between those two, but I want to make sure that they both exist. The starting, or the opening, and the ending. Inside of this, and this is where I will tab in a little bit, I must have an opening and closing head region. And so I'm going to add that. And that's just an opening head. And I'm going to hit enter and tab and a closing head. Now whatever's inside of this will be considered in the head region. And we will see there are content, specific content that goes in there. Then this is kind of like the computer element that for the most part will be used for search engines and those kind of things. But we do have the title that goes in there. After the head part we have what's called the body. And we can think of the body, and I'm going to indent the body as the part that the human will look at. So it has an opening and a closing. And I need to make sure that those are in there. All right? So essentially, in essence, we have doc type, our HTML, opening and closing elements. We have a head region that contains information and a body region that contains information. And now we're going to begin filling these with the necessary parts. Okay? The HTML section, we want to add in the type of language that we're going to be using, the language that it's going to be written in, and that's going to be English. So I'm going to move this over. And so here I'm going to just add in the language of English. So that means it's HTML and it's in English. In the head region, we need to define the character sets, and we're going to add a title. That means the actual tab, what comes up here in this section. And then we have some meta content that I want to add. And so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take this content, and this is something that I'm going to copy, and I'm going to go into my head region, give myself some space, and I'm going to paste it in here. Now I want to make sure that I tab these over and get them lined up nicely so that everything within the head is visible. So as I tab these over, these head regions here, now I'm in view or format word wrap. If I didn't word wrap, they'll just keep going on and on and on, which at this particular point makes it look quite nice. So I have my head region. In that I have a title, and the title, we'll figure out what the title is supposed to be in a minute. I have my meta data, and this is the content that we'll be adding as we go along. So what I want to say is Now let's go ahead and just edit this real quick. So that this is going to be, if we go to our notes here, we're gonna, I believe we call this web. Let me find out. We're gonna call this web career information. So I'm gonna copy that, paste it into this space. Web career information, and the description is, this is the part that you edit. And so this is, we'll just say that this is CIS 152 Project 1 web page. And the author is, your name goes here. So in this particular case, I'll put Derek Alice. Now this is information that the computer will read, and that this will be added to the actual tab. So actually, if I was to save this right now, Control Save. If I save it, make sure it's saved, I would be able to look at this and to open it with a browser and to see if it will work. So let me try that. So I go back into my Project 1 HTML. I'm going to right click on it. I'm going to say Open with Google Chrome. Notice that it doesn't show me anything, but it does give me this web career information, and which is what I want. So I'm going to close that. I'm going to go back. So I'm going to continue down this list. So as I mark things up, it's very important that I am aware. Does this open and does it close? Now these meta tags are a little different. They don't contain any information that the viewer will see, like I'm displaying this text. This is just content, so it doesn't have a closing tag. It just is, it contains it within it. So you'll see that this doesn't have a meta tag ending or closer. So these are a little bit different. Okay. Now I'm going to begin working in my body section. So within my body, I need an H1. Now I'm going to tab over because this is the main portion, and then I want to put something inside of it. So this is where I'm going to say H1 opening, and this is how I'm going to do it. Backspace, or sorry, /H1. That's my closer, and I do that before I start typing because I know that I open it and I close it as I go, and it's very important to me to stay organized. So Project 1, this is where I'm going to use my text data that I had opened up here. And in my web career information, I'm going to copy that, and I'm simply going to paste that in my H1 section. Very simple. File, save. All right, I'm going to close this for a second. Now, if this happens to you, we may have to play a little bit of a game here. I'm going to name this Project 1 version 2, and I'm going to save this. Sometimes Windows might get confused when you have when you're trying to do this. I've seen this happen before, so I'm going to have to play a little game with its naming conventions, and then I'll change it back when I'm finished. Because ultimately, it's the title of this is going to be Project 1 version 2. So if this happens to you, you may have to just do a little workaround real quick. All right. So I'm going to add my body, my header, and then I'm going to add a paragraph. So after my header, I'm going to add an opening P and a closing P. Oops, I want to indent that. Make sure you're indenting. And you want to give yourself enough space. So I'm going to give myself an extra space down, opener and a closer. And into that, I can put in the content of this paragraph right here. Now, I'm just doing this as a demonstration of how you would mark these things up. I'm going to go to Format, Word Wrap. And you can see that I have my opening P, my closing P, and all of this is contained inside of it. You have to be totally alert to where things open and close. If you get these mixed up, it will cause your code to not validate properly. I'm going to hit File, Save. Okay. Now, if I go back to my folder where it's being stored, I can hit Control Open, and I can say Open with Google Chrome, and now